start with the Shiminpo. Okay, since we all know it, unless somebody new comes on, we're just going to go ahead and go through the little yoga sequence. You all have it memorized by now. So I see that Anisi is on. Anisi, you've been here a couple of times, so you're probably pretty familiar with the beginning. We've already started, so we're doing our little initial yoga sequence to get comfortable in our seats. We've kind of gotten to the end of one side, but I'm going to walk you through the other side in case you don't remember. So we're going to switch legs at this point. We're going to do the other side. We breathe in. Right hand, we go over. In, out the other side. In, we're going to twist. In center, twist. In center, hands are going to be behind the back. You'll breathe in as you clasp your hands and arch back. Forward. And up. We're going to change our grip in our hands. We're going to breathe in as we arch back. Forward. And up. Out, hands on the knees. We're going to rotate at the hips 3 times in one direction. And 3 times in the opposite direction. I think Amir has the most Zen cat in Florida. There was this beautiful dog. I used to go to this martial arts temple and train in Korea, and they had this dog. And this dog, every time in the morning, when it had the morning service, he would go up the hill from where he was sleeping and he would sit down. He had a special cushion. He would sit down in the back of the hall and attend morning service. So he actually became a little bit well known because that's a unique thing for a dog to do. Nobody prompted him. He just did it on his own. So he was on TV a little bit and people kind of knew his name. And then when the dog died, the temple owner was, a monk, and he loved that dog, and he actually made a statue. There's a statue of that dog there at that temple. But they do have these traditional stories, how animals can be associated with certain teachers or certain temples and things like that. And the traditional stories are there's some kind of apprentice, or they have some kind of relationship, an inya and a karmic affinity with it. And they go and they're starting to learn because something that they did in a past life wasn't correct. Traditionally is what they say, like they made some mistakes. They got kicked out. They lost their body, their human form, but they were still interested in teaching and practicing. So they still stayed in the area, the vicinity of the temple to try to come back to the fold, so to speak. So Amir is doing a service for his cat. May your cat in another life attain a human body to be able to practice and to be able to awaken to his true self. So we're going to do a little Qigong to get situated and kind of calm and have our minds kind of feel settled. Hands in front of the belly button. Just going to breathe in as we expand, out as we contract. We're going to do that 3 more times at our own pace. Next motion, hands go up as you breathe in towards shoulder height. They turn over, go down towards the knees. Breathe out. We're going to do this 3 more times at our own pace. Fingertips come together. We're going to breathe in as you circle up the midline, out as you go down and around. 3 more times at your own pace. The third time, you're going to make a little triangle in front of your forehead. You're going to breathe in as you scoop behind you, out as you raise your hands up to head height. We'll do that 3 more times at our own pace. And that third time, we're going to make that same triangle. You're going to breathe into your hands. As you breathe out, you're going to lower that triangle where your thumbs touch your belly button, triangle underneath your belly button. You drop your shoulders. You're going to breathe into that triangle 3 times. Okay, good. We're going to go ahead and sit. I think I remember, Anisha, that you have experience sitting a little bit longer stretches. It doesn't bother you. If we sit like 45 minutes, are you good with that? All right, she's good. Since we have a small group today, we're going to go ahead and sit 45 minutes, okay? So Brian is going to hit the ringer. We're going to give a little half bow. Can those of you out there hear me? We're frozen once again. So you can hear me, it seems, but you can't. I don't know what's up with Zoom. We're frozen, but we can still talk. So we're going to give a little half bow, and then we're going to rub our hands together, create a little friction, and start to enliven the body. You can rub those hands on your face, your eyes. You run them through your hair. You can massage down your ears towards the lobes. You can tap out your chest and traps. Give your belly a nice little rub. You can massage your back and extend your legs and make yourself comfortable. I'm sorry about Zoom. I don't really know what's going on. It happens from time to time. It seems to happen when I don't move. But I can see you guys, like everybody there is moving and I see your screen moving, but I don't know what's up with us. But we can still have a question and answer. I want to make sure I get to Sandra too, because Sandra got cut off a little bit last time. So I want to make sure I include her in the conversation. We do have Brian here. Oh, what just happened? We do have Brian here in the audience live. So we always start off with live people. Brian and I have already been talking, but I want to give you an opportunity if something's coming up for you, Brian. Is there something that's coming up for you?
Not at the moment, Gene. Thank you.
Okay, so Brian did a little half bow. So I want to start with Sandra because I want to check in with you a little bit, and we'll definitely give opportunity to Amir and Anicia if you have questions. Sandra, we sat a little bit longer today, about 45 minutes, because it was kind of regulars on the Zoom. And you entered a little bit later, but we sat a little bit longer. Was it comfortable for you sitting this amount of time, or was it difficult?
Well, I lasted about 30 minutes.
That's great. Congratulations. You get a high five. So that's amazing for one. You know, you've only sat with us, probably this is like your fourth time. So 30 minutes, most of the time when you go to meditation, people have you do like 5 minutes. So you've already done 6 times more than most people. So congratulations.
Well, and I had committed to 15 minutes every day last week.
That's amazing. How did that work out? Did you get to 15 minutes every day? Yeah. Okay.
I haven't settled into, I need to make it a routine time every day because I haven't been doing it at a regular time. And then I'll remember, you know, as the day goes on, say, oh, I got to meditate. But I think it would be better if I have it in a routine.
It really does help. The routine will keep you stable. So oftentimes the simplest time is the daytime when you wake up, because people's morning routines are often kind of fixed before they got to get out in their day. Do you think that what's your morning routine? Like what time do you wake up and what time do you got to get your day started?
Well, I had been doing it when I wake up, still in the bed lying flat.
It's perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and that's usually between around 7 a.m.
Okay. Do you normally have like a morning cup of something to kind of get your day started? Coffee, tea, something else?
Yeah.
So when you drink that coffee, tea, or something else, do you normally have a favorite place you like to sit? Where do you like to sit?
In front of my laptop.
Okay. So let's say you sat there, but your laptop were closed instead of open, right? How long do you normally sit there with your cup of something, just kind of open it, waking up for the morning? How much time do you normally already spend doing that?
Oh gosh, an hour or two.
All right. So I'm going to give you a process and you tell me if it's useful. So what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to give you a cue. A cue means like a trigger, something that triggers your memory. Okay. So normally you have a morning routine. You're making a cup of something hot. What are you making? Coffee, tea? What do you drink?
I drink coffee or coffee substitute.
Okay. So I really personally like to start my morning with something like tea myself. And do you have a special mug that you like a mug that you use more than others?
No, I just use whatever I have.
Okay. So your only thing that you have to remember is when you grab your mug, that's going to be the cue that you need to meditate. So you grab your mug every day and you make your hot cup of coffee or coffee substitute. So that mug for you is going to be your cue. It's going to say, oh, it's meditation time. Now you sit down, keep everything the same. You don't have to mix it up right now. But instead of turning on your computer, you meditate for a certain amount of time before you turn it on. Okay? Does that
Okay.
make
Yeah.
Okay, do you think that you can implement that? Or you can do one more step. I can help you in case you forget. How about this? You put a little piece of tape with the word meditate on your computer. So let's say you got your mug, but you didn't remember. You're like, you're just drinking your coffee, you're groggy. But then on the computer, you see the word meditate. And you're like, that's right. I'm supposed to do this before I turn you on. And you go
Well,
ahead and meditate.
probably the best way for me that I do with other things is I put an alarm in my phone.
That's great. Do that. My phone guides my whole life. I have basically every task I need to do in my phone every day. It beeps all day long. Make it a consistent time. Do that. Oftentimes, I like to start off with something like a hot cup of coffee or tea because I'm just a little bit foggy in the morning and I might have resistance. And that cup of something that I enjoy, it's an easy first step. For example, like sometimes I'll go to the pool for a swim, but I'm not a great swimmer and I don't love it. So I got resistance, but the pool has a hot tub. I like that. So my thought is instead of going to the pool and swimming, because I'll be like, damn it, I don't want to do it. I'll say, just go to the hot tub, get in. After that, if you want to swim, go ahead. So I start to replace it with something that I enjoy. I get in the hot tub and then half the time I'm going to go swim because I already got wet. So you start off with something you enjoy, your cup of coffee, you got your alarm, it rings, and you're more likely than not going to sit. Okay. So your process, have you tried to commit to a longer term process of meditation? Like right now you did a week. Did you and I talk about you doing a longer stretch, like 30 days or jumping in the 100 days?
Yeah, it was 30 days.
All right, good. So you're a week in, right?
Yeah.
Good. I want you to keep it up. I want you to think of something important to you. What would you say is the single most important person in your life? Who's the most important person in your life? You can
My grandson,
your grandson. What's his name and how old is he?
Michael, and he's 26.
Okay. Do you want him to have the most opportunity in life to have a lovely life?
Yes.
Okay. So why don't you try this? Why don't you dedicate your practice to Michael, your grandson?
Okay.
So when you do that, it helps you get out of your resistance, get out of your way. You love your grandson, and we often love somebody else more than ourselves. We often do. Because if I had to say, I want you to meditate for yourself, Sandra, yeah, 50% of the time you might, and then 50% of the time you say, well, myself wants to sleep. I ain't doing it today. So, but your grandson, if he were with you and you were sleeping and he needed you, you'd wake up for him. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, if he said, Grandma, I need some breakfast, you'd be like, all right, I'm getting up. And you go make him breakfast, right? So dedicate your practice to your grandson. The world is connected in very interestingly and strange ways. Just by you meditating, is that going to change everything in his life? Who knows? But does it give you personally as a human being more than 1% chance of being kinder to him in the future? It does. And does that extra kindness give Michael more than 1% chance of altering his day when he sees you? It does. There are effects from our causes that we don't fully understand the impact of. So dedicate your practice to him. You have 3 more weeks. And then after those 3 weeks, what I want you to do is tell me. And then we're going to talk about maybe doing some more, or maybe just seeing how you're feeling about it. Okay.
Okay.
Do you have any specific questions or anything coming up for you?
No,
No
none
problem.
that I can think of right now.
No problem. You just work on it. Most of the time, what's required is actually just the consistency, and you just move forward. A monk once told me, because they do these 3 months retreat twice a year, they're sitting 8 hours every day for 6 months. And I was like, well, Jesus, I didn't know nothing about meditation in the very beginning. I was like, oh my God, what are you doing all that time? And he said, most of the time, it's just like punching the clock to go to work. You just punch the clock, you sit there, you let your mind calm down, you let it kind of clean up naturally. You start to see your habits and patterns. And then after a while, what happens is it starts to build some momentum. You get some insight. You notice your life changing in beautiful ways you hadn't realized. Like you become kinder, you become more patient, you become a little bit more disciplined. You start to care about yourself and others more, right? And we can all agree that those are good things for all of us to experience. Okay, so I'm proud of you. You keep on it and keep coming back. Amir or Anisha, do either of you have questions or comments or something that's going on with you that you'd like to bring up? You can raise your hand if either of you are. Okay, Amir, I'm happy to field your questions. What's going on with you, my friend?
How you doing, Dr. Gene? I have a couple of check-ins. You gave me homework a couple of weeks ago about music at my workplace, and sometimes it's blasting loud.
Yes.
And especially early in the morning. And I could just go pretty much turn it off if I want. And I've been doing that for a long time. But the last couple of weeks, I've been just keeping it loud, and I'm actually starting to enjoy it.
We're turning you into an early morning heavy metal fan. All right. Well,
Yeah.
that's amazing, because an object of resistance or tension with you can surprisingly be an object of joy.
Yeah.
Right? Is there a food you don't like, by the way? Let's expand upon this a little bit. Is there any particular food you don't enjoy, Amir?
Mayonnaise.
Okay, mayonnaise. So probably when you look at it, I don't like mayonnaise either personally, but when you look at it, you might have like resistance. It might be gooey and stuff. And you might think about the saturated fat in it, and that might upset your mind a little bit and all that stuff. But you've eaten mayonnaise, right, Amir?
I have.
Okay, so tell me what it tastes like. Tell me the texture, describe it to me without thinking about how much you dislike it. Just describe it to me.
Has a little sour taste to it. The consistency is kind of like glue.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I got.
It's okay. So already you got two things. You could define the taste a little bit. You can define the texture, the consistency. So if you had mayonnaise in your mouth right now and you didn't have the resistance, you would just have a little bit of sour, a little bit of creamy, and also that kind of like gooey consistency, right?
Yes.
That's the reality of mayonnaise. The resistance is extra. So when you hear loud music in the morning, tell me one of the loud songs they play in the morning. Maybe I'll know it. What is it? Something I might know.
Justin Bieber.
Okay, Justin Bieber. I know Justin Bieber. I do. So Justin Bieber, you have his voice. You have all of the instruments in the background, and they're all making particular sounds. And then you have it all kind of coming together. You don't like the finished product. You don't like what it sounds like altogether. But let's say you just heard, for example, like the synthesizer portion. If you just heard that, you'd be like, that's okay. That just sounds like a synthesizer. Then you heard the guitar and you'd be like, that's okay. That's just a guitar. Then you heard Justin Bieber's voice. You're like, well, I don't love it, but it's all right. You know, he can sing better than I can. You might not like the words, but maybe there's a particular lyric in the song that's not terrible, right? Sings a bunch of love songs, sings about people, you know, like fretting him because he's all like famous and shit. He sings about all these kinds of things. If you look at the individual parts, they don't bother us as much as we think. What happens is it all comes together and it becomes a jumbled mess coupled with our resistance, and we just see something differently than it is. We see it as this objective thing. But if I were to ask you to pick out one thing you really don't like about Justin Bieber, his particular song that you got in your mind right now, not the total composite of it, but just one thing, there probably wouldn't be something that's so terrible. Am I correct? Yeah, that's funny. There's a little aha moment there for us. Something that we all hate. Let's say Brussels sprouts. We were talking about food before, right? A lot of kids don't like Brussels sprouts. They just eat it and they don't like the taste of it. But Brussels sprouts, what do they actually taste like? They're a little bit bitter, right? Are there bitter foods that you enjoy? Everybody has some bitterness in some foods that they enjoy. They also got that kind of like little cabbage texture to them, right? Maybe you don't like the bitterness, but maybe you don't like the crunch when you have to get through the cabbage. Maybe there's other things about it that you don't enjoy, but when you break it down, it's not that bad. It's the fact that we make assumptions and we look at the totality of it as opposed to its constituent parts. Okay, so I'm going there somewhere with this little thread. When you look at a human being you don't like, right? We normally just don't like their presentation and how they're treating us. We just don't like those things. But if you look at any particular part of their body, is there something in their body that's so disagreeable you couldn't look at them? There isn't. Is their voice so disagreeable that you really can't hear it? Probably isn't. It's because we add up all of these things. We add up voice, appearance, the words they say, the energy they put off, coupled with all your interactions with them in the past. You put it all together, and then all of a sudden we're saying, I don't like you. You being this person you think that person is. But we don't know everything about that person. We don't know why they're so damn anxious. Do we think people when they're anxious, you know people when they're anxious, they're in front of you and they're so jittery and nervous that they make you uncomfortable. We've all experienced those kind of people, right? It just feels difficult to be in front of them. They're just so uncomfortable in their skin. You're like, holy crap, I can only stand 5 minutes of you. Otherwise, I'm going to jump out of my own skin, right? But all of their actions have reasons. They all have reasons. They didn't get to where they are suddenly. They weren't born monsters. There's all of this cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect that they've never actually looked at, that they've never actually relaxed, and it's pushing them in a direction. So I think that that's a lovely thing that you've learned. And now I'm going to go find a Justin Bieber song for my ride home. Thank you, Amir. Did you have another thing? It sounded like you had two things.
Well, regarding the same question, I've been noticing myself just trying to be more comfortable in uncomfortable situations. Like at home, my wife likes to put the lights very bright, and I always despised that. I always hated it. And every time I would go into a room, I would dim the lights. But I'm just walking to the room. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to be okay with the lights being very bright right now. And there's like countless other things that happen throughout the day, just as something as simple as an itch. So, you know, I'm not going to itch it. So it's happening kind of all over. And my question regarding that is that, could that be unhealthy if I'm overdoing that in any sense?
Well, you can have things that are going on in your life that can have a negative physical consequence. Like if you do not like bright fluorescent lights and you're using it as a point of practice, can be useful. It means you're putting yourself in a place where you don't like it. The resistance bothers you and you're letting the resistance calm down. And you're noticing so many different things like that in your life that you can use as practice. That's a useful thing. But if you were in, bright fluorescent lights 24 hours a day, you might actually start to have some physical problems, right? It can start to affect, different neurochemicals in your brain. It can affect your all kinds of things. So the answer is anything can eventually hurt your body. It's good to be body conscious and to be honest with yourself, but using these little demons as kind of practice points, I think is very, very useful. So I used this example. I've mentioned it a couple of times, even though I actually haven't even read this man. So it's probably not good for me to use an example of something I don't intimately know, but my buddy would talk about Carlos Castaneda, and he would talk about Don Juan, the object of the Carlos Castaneda books. He was a medicine man. And we used to talk about similar points when we were in college. And the reason why I bring this up, and it's one of my foundational stories, is because Carlos Castaneda talked about it in a way that's different than like Buddhism and different than the language that I use now. He said, he asked Don Juan, he's like, how can I attain enlightenment? And Don Juan said, well, put yourself in a dark room, stare at the wall. You just take away your outs. You put yourself in a position where you can't run away, and your mind will create so much tension that you'll have to drop it. Nobody can stare at a wall in a dark room for years at a time without going insane or relaxing the tension around it. It just can't happen. It's too much pressure. There's no distractions. And then he said, if you really want to, we're going to kind of use the word nirvana. Nirvana is where our habitual grasping starts to relax and we don't have so much resistance to things, right? That starts to just relax. He said, if you really want to unfold and do the job of life, you get yourself a lot of little demons, a lot of little things that bother you. Because all of these things that bother you, they're touch points for you to relax your resistance and experience the present and to work on this relaxation response, which is the core mechanism of our suffering. The fact that we clench down and resist what's going on. So we have to relax that clenching and accept what's going on. So having all of these little things like Justin Bieber in the morning, right? The kitty cat go against your lap and the tail brushes your nose. These can all be incorporated into your practice. You do have to watch if it becomes too strong, if it's overwhelming, right? Like you could have a fight with your wife and you're like, okay, I'm just going to handle this. It's going to be more, I'm going to work with this. I'm going to use it as a practice. I'm not going to react. But then if it's too destructive for you, if it causes you too much inner turmoil and anger starts to rise and it becomes uncontrollable, and then you're just repressing it, thinking that you're doing spiritual work, you can actually hurt yourself, right? You can. You can give yourself an ulcer. You can give yourself pain, right? All these things can happen. So the little demons can be very, very useful. And those are normally the things that people run from because they're things you can avoid. The bigger demons, you have to watch, are they actually hurting you, right? Because you can go to, I know you're mostly a vegetarian, but you can go to, let's say, like a friend's house and they're eating nothing but steak for a week. You can say, all right, I'm going to accept this. This is a point of practice. But you might be able to get through 1 or 2 days of that. But 5 days in, you're going to be like, oh my God, I'm throwing up. My stomach hurts. It probably would have been useful for you to tell your friend that you're a vegetarian and you're going to need some other options when you stayed at his house. That's wisdom, right? Understanding the cause and effect and understanding where you can interject. So can it be detrimental? Yes. Can it be helpful? Yes. It's how are you responding to it? So check in. You're a body conscious guy, right? You're a body guy. You like to be in your body physically. Check in. How is it making your body feel? A little discomfort? Can you relax into it? So much discomfort that you're actually having a physical problem, then you need to check that. Does that make sense, Amir? Okay. Another example is like as you start to sit longer, you can have physical pain. I saw you when we were doing the peyote ceremony, your back hurt. And I've seen monks that are crippled, that have these huge knees with arthritis and they can barely walk because they muscled through meditation. They thought that they had to sit there and endure in full lotus for hours and hours at a time, that they're literally almost crippled. So this is where I would argue for more of a middle way approach. The ultimate process described in a Buddhist process is the middle way, the way between extremes. So when people start to practice, you can just swing the pendulum the other way and get to be very extreme in the way that you practice. Most Americans need to practice harder. They're not practicing hard enough to be in an extreme. If somebody's saying, I'm practicing an hour a day, oh my God, it's so hard, I feel like that I'm the toughest guy on earth, I would say that that's probably not true. I understand it's hard for you and it's hard considering nobody else in your area practices, that you're the only one doing it. You're in rural Arkansas and everybody thinks you're crazy. So for you, it's very, very hard practice. That's true. But there's the opposite swing of the pendulum. That's when people start to get into purity and pollution issues. That means I can't be I'm always wanting to be super clean. It can be an issue. So that's why you see Zen, the language, oftentimes throws mud at things. It tries to keep us from being too pure because we get attached. Like that's why I took you to have breakfast and we ate at a greasy spoon and we ate food that was not necessarily your first choice when we were in Homestead. It's a practice. It's a lesson in relaxing resistance, right? And the stronger you get, it's oftentimes where you can put yourself into places of difficulty and see how you do. Okay. So one of the points of practice for me, because I'm going to start the plant medicine process again in June, I'm going to do a retreat. I'm going to be on site at a retreat center. Is I admire the medicine people and how much poise they can have under pressure. They're managing all these people around them. Some of them are struggling and they're also drinking the medicine and they're struggling, but they have poise. They're able to keep it together. Me, I am a floppy, weepy, pukey mess. And I see these plant medicine people and I'm just in love with how much grace under fire they have. And I want to use it as a point of practice, because as we sit there with Mother Aya or whatever, or as you just meditate, you're just sitting by yourself, you don't need a substance. As you sit there and you're asking to cultivate something, cultivating compassion, cultivating persistence, cultivating. One of the things that I would like to cultivate personally is poise under duress. Can I be there with my suffering? Can I be there for another person's suffering? And can there be an elegance to it? Right? There's beauty in it. So just a couple things to give you an aha or to contemplate. Anisha, you don't talk much and you're not required to, but do you have something specifically you'd like to bring up or something that's going on with you or comment? If you don't, you can just give a little half bow and say no. All right, it's no big deal. It's not required. Oftentimes, the speaking up process is useful because, one, it helps other people. Like when Amir talks about Justin Bieber, we can all learn something from that. We're often in a place where the music's uncomfortable and we don't like it. And you're going to remember. You're going to say, oh, remember Amir and Justin Bieber. You might chuckle, but it might get you through 30 minutes of listening to your grandson's hard rock music or something you don't know. And also to speak starts to give voice and to give you some open vulnerability and also confidence. People don't often talk about the process of growing into yourself and the confidence that comes around it. It is a necessary process as we start to settle in, start to become more confident. When I say hit the ground, everybody's seen it and they hit the ground. First, in the beginning, people hit very soft. They don't even have confidence in something as simple as hitting the ground, even when I tell them. Why? It's weird. You're like, why am I going to hit the ground in front of a bunch of strangers? That's weird. You're telling me to do it, so I'll do it. And then I'll tell you to hit stronger and harder. And you hit harder. And it requires less hesitation. This hesitation is the window that the ego kind of climbs in and plants the seeds of fear. And then this fear germinates. So you don't have to say anything, it's not required, but if you have an inkling, which means you have a stirring of wanting to say something, Anisha, Sandra, Amir, or anybody else, say it. You have an opportunity, you say it. You at least start to practice confidence. Okay? Just a little bit of encouragement. All right, wonderful. So we sat a little bit longer today, so we're going to do a little bit of chanting, and we're going to wrap up a little bit. So we're going to chant. I really do. We should start just a basic curriculum, honestly. So there are books, and we can go through particular koans, and we can start to have a basic curriculum of chanting and things like that. So I've sent out the Heart Sutra in Korean and English to you. And that's something that's really useful for us to consider part of the basic curriculum, because chanting the Heart Sutra, especially in English, it only takes but like 1 or 2 minutes. And it could start to be something that we do at the end. So I'll have to send it back out. We'll have to kind of get on the same page. But until then, we're going to do a little Gwansen Bosai. Everyone all together. Sandra, could you just put yourself on mute just because we're going to have a little bit of echo and reverb? Okay, Sandra, thank you. Gwansen Bosai, 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 We're going to put our hands in prayer, and you can just repeat after me. May Justin Bieber heal.
May Justin Bieber heal.
May Justin Bieber awaken.
May Justin Bieber awaken.
May Justin Bieber abide in awakening.
May Justin Bieber abide in awakening.
Okay, we'll do a shimimpa. We breathe in, hands go up. Out, hands go down and meet at the bottom. In, back up to prayer. Out, a little half bow. Even Justin Bieber deserves a little love. All right, thank you, everybody. It's so wonderful to see you. Keep up with your consistency of practice. I'm proud of you. We'll see you next Wednesday, okay? Bye-bye now.